Welcome to Vibrant Living with Nousha. I'm Nousha, a former climber of the corporate ladder turned lifestyle entrepreneur. Each week, I'll bring you an inspiring message to support you in designing and creating a vibrant, fulfilling life. Thank you for joining me today. Now let's get started. Hello and welcome to Vibrant Living with Nousha. I'm Nousha, happy to be here with you today to talk about our mental health, and more specifically, the topic that comparison kills joy. So my intention for today is to illustrate to you the role of comparison in our lives and to share 4 steps that actually utilize comparison as a springboard for us to expand into our best self. As well, I'll include 5 resources that have supported me and that can support you further. So let's talk about comparison and how it is so human for us to compare. In fact, part of being human is to judge, to assess, to compare. And it's actually a very beautiful process because it indicates to us the direction in which we want to go. So if we find ourselves comparing ourselves, it's a sign that, wow, this is something that I want. And conversely, if we are comparing and we're not there, it also shows us that where we're at is not where we want to be. Where we are comparing is where we are heading and what we'd like to see more of in our lives. So it's a very human thing to compare, especially as we're constantly expanding and evolving into our best selves. And in different areas of our lives, we can see different people at different stages. And so when you find yourself in the state of comparing, there's 2 things that are important to remember, to stop and to remember these 2 things. Number 1 is that what we're seeing is an opportunity for us to step in to that way of being or that state, and that it's something that we want to have in our lives. So it's just an indication, and to recognize that. And step number 2 is to recognize that what we may see in someone is their glory, them being in their glory, and not necessarily the story. One of my friends shared this, and I love this. And he says, we often see people's glory, but we don't know the story. And we all go through challenges and obstacles in order to fulfill on certain goals and realize certain intentions. And oftentimes, we may be seeing the end of this story and comparing their ending to our beginning. We're just getting going with this process of realizing something, and we're comparing our beginning to someone else's ending. And I have an example to illustrate this. In 2015, I did my very first triathlon with some awesome friends. And what's really interesting is that, I love to swim, I love to cycle, but running has never really been one of my favorite things. And so I was a bit reluctant to be involved in a triathlon where I had to run a long distance. However, I looked at it as a way to expand myself and really let go of some limiting beliefs in my mindset. And so I trained for about a month and a half, and came race day. The swim was excellent. That's what we started with. So triathlons, for those of you that may not be aware, it starts with the swim and then the cycle and then the run. And for me, it was like, I wish we could start with the run because that's the hardest thing for me. So one of the things I was doing as I was doing the triathlon is really conserving my energy for the run, because it was more of a challenge for me to do the run. And so there I was, I finished the swim, it was so much fun. I got on my bike and went for a beautiful ride in Stanley Park. And I remember there was a stage where there wasn't a lot of people around me. Actually, I felt like I was alone, and I was in nature and really just bliss-filled, really enjoying the process. I was in momentum. I was well trained, so I had a good pace and really enjoying the process. And then suddenly I could hear some people behind me coming up, and very soon after they started to pass me. And in that moment, I compared myself to them. And what started to happen is I actually lost momentum. I slowed down, I wasn't feeling good, and then I reminded myself of a 4-step process that I'm going to share with you, and I'll share that process with you shortly. But what's interesting is as I shifted, as I used this 4-step process, my results were better and I got momentum, and I actually did the best time that I ever have with my run. And so I'll share the process with you, the 4-step process. So the first step that I took is I was really acknowledging where I was. I was acknowledging that, hey, this is my very first triathlon. And what I discovered later on is that some of the people that were participating in the triathlon, they had actually completed a couple of Ironmans, and the triathlon was just a bit of a wind down process for the end of the season. And so, it's interesting after when you take a look at these things that it was ridiculous, for me to compare myself, but it was very human of me to do that. So the first step was I just acknowledged where I am, that this is my first triathlon, and from there I went to step 2, which is really to honor your own journey. And for me, it was like, this is the last time that I'll have my very first triathlon. So let me enjoy it to the most of my ability and really savor the experience and savor exactly where I am and exactly where I'm not, and the pace I'm going and the pace I'm not going. And so step number 2 is to really honor your journey because it's unique to you. And there's also, when we honor our journey, there's some really delightful lessons and growth and learning that we can experience when we stay focused on our own journey versus comparing ourselves, being in that state. And one of the things that came for me in terms of things that I learned was that comparison kills joy, which I'm sharing with you today. So that's step number 2. Step number 3 is to choose to expand. So, I check in with myself, and do I believe that I can do have X? Do I believe that I can have the most amazing time for my cycle and my run? And if the answer is yes, then we move to step 4, which is to start creating. Now, I talked about this process in episode 2 in terms of intentional living. So if you haven't listened to that episode yet, I invite you to do so. And as well, I can share just a brief summary now, is step 1 with creating is to create an intention. And then step 2 is to start feeling the feelings by visualizing and acting as if whatever we want has already happened. And, Wayne Dyer talks about this. He says that, first you believe it, then you see it. And I have a fun story to share. And this is a story that Bernstein shares in her book, The Universe Has Your Back. And she talks about how this was the process of her attracting her ideal mate. And it was about a 9-month process. And she started with the feelings. Obviously, she set an intention, and then she went to the next step, which is being in those feelings and acting as if it's already happened. So she would walk around the city as if her partner was right beside her and feeling the feelings as if he was right there. And in this process, she attracted some dates and some great people that were not quite the match that she was looking for. However, after 9 months of continuing to do this, she met her boyfriend at the time, who's now a very special man in her life, her husband. And so this is an example of going through the process of the creating an intention, and then from there feeling the feelings as if it's already happened. And for myself with the triathlon, I created the intention that I would fully enjoy this triathlon. And being in the state of joy actually had me have more momentum and get even better results, because as I was mentioning, the running part was not my favorite part. And to my surprise, I was actually conserving energy because I wanted to finish strong. And to my surprise, I was running, enjoying, having fun. Before I knew it, I was at the finish line and I had the best time ever. And this goes back to, what Tony Robbins shares, which is creating a state change. And these state changes can really change our physiology and, to go back to our mental health in the end, which affects everything else. And so I hope that you have enjoyed these 4 steps, and that, we can see comparison actually as a gift, and that we can use comparison as a springboard for us to expand into our best selves. And, we'd love to hear your experience. You can join us on our Vibrant Living community on Facebook. We'd love to hear how it's going, what your experiences are. And I also promised that I would share 5 books with you. So the first book I already talked about, which is The Universe Has Your Back by Gabby Bernstein. Excellent book. And then there's 2 really great books by Eckhart Tolle. One of them is The Power of Now, and the other one is A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. Of course, we have Wayne Dyer, The Power of Intention. And finally, a book that I really love is The Desire Map by Danielle Laporte. So you can find all these books in the resources section on my website, noushabebahanian.com. And it has been such a pleasure to be connected with you in this way today, to have this kind of conversation. I'm so grateful for technology. And until next time, friends, beautiful people, be vibrant, be bright. It's your birthright. Now, let's go out there and shine our light. Thank you for investing this time with me on the Vibrant Living with Nousha podcast. I'm so glad that you joined our conversation. If you would take 2 minutes to positively impact someone's life by sharing this episode, that would be wonderful. Please leave us a review by visiting iTunes. Let us know what you enjoy and what you'd like to see more of. It will support us on our journey to causing a worldwide epidemic of vibrant living. Until next time, be vibrant, be bright. It's your birthright. Now, let's go out there and shine our light.